Alrighty, it looks like everyone's here.
Hello.
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 Greetings.
And welcome to everyone who might be joining us at the moment or anyone who might be viewing this in the near future.
I see
Welcome
Andrew
to
joined
the
us in the
Path
comments.
Less Trodden, our second virtual for the Whisky Wanderers Festival. How are we doing, guys?
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's Wednesday night. I've got some fine whiskies in front of me, and I'm joined by three fine people and some people at home. So,
Well said.
any better?
What could
Exactly.
be worse? Exactly.
I feel incredibly less well dressed than last time, but
It was a special occasion, uncoordinated efforts last time, but that's all right. Andrew, last time you didn't join us because you were taking on Tasmanian whiskey, standing up for our honour.
In a battle for the ages. It was a fantastic night. A lot of fun. It was a funny night in some ways. For those who don't know, we had SMWS versus Hartwood, and it was myself versus Tim Duckett, and we each showcased some of our whiskies. And it was a fun night because it was obviously billed as a bit of a competitive, us versus them, you versus me, your whiskies versus my whiskies. And the irony being is, Tim's been a long-standing member of the society way from the start. We're very good mates. We're good friends. We've got on each other for so long. So at the end, as I think I said to a few people afterwards, at the end of the night, whiskey was the winner. So
yeah. It's pretty funny, isn't it? Like, those events are great because, like you're saying there, AD, it's probably everyone in the room has a small SMWS collection and a small Hartwood collection at home, and that's why they're going.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, fantastic. I've had a very fond love of Hartwood, and the society, obviously, for basically my entire whiskey career for 12 years. Sorry, yeah. Two of the first whiskeys I had on the very first night of my whiskey, the first whiskey bar I worked at was a Hartwood, which I believe was Any Port in a Storm. And a society whiskey, which was a 33.
Okay, so you dived into the deep end then.
Yeah, birth by fire.
That
Not a bad way.
Probably shows our age because I reckon AD and I at least remember Mount Wellington Hartwood back in the origin story of that.
See, I tasted the Mount Wellington.
What a drink it was. Without wanting to blow smoke up Tim's wash still. The Mount Wellington was actually the very first Australian whiskey that, to many people, certainly in my whiskey circles, actually this is meant to be a compliment. It tastes like a Scotch. A lot of the early Australian whiskies were what we now know as that Australian style, and people were still warming to it at the time. Mount Wellington came out, and it was a whiskey that Scotch drinkers identified with and loved and appreciated.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I was just going to say that's back in the era when the first whole era of Hartwood was just basically single cask, Sullivans and Lark, and I think I can't remember, that was maybe between 12 and 16 or something. Mount Wellington, I can't remember now, but single bourbon Sullivans, and that is very Scotch style and delicious.
I mean, Sullivan's Cove is quite Scotch style anyway, just inherently, but I guess the big thing with Aussie whiskey comparatively to that bourbon style is big infield, big malt character, and there is this kind of native floral funk to it. You always have this weird eucalyptus resin to a lot of big Australian whiskies, and I don't know where that comes from, but it's just inherently there.
This
really,
is a
really
nice
cool
segue because much like Tasmania, our first whiskey is from a little island off the main island.
It is. Oh. Yeah, let's dive in. Let's go into our first whiskey.
Actually, to be accurate, it's a little island off a medium island off the big island.
True.
Yeah.
It's more
you
like
want to be pedantic.
But as I keep hearing, size doesn't matter, and it's the flavour that bursts out of the glass. What a segue!
All right, well, I see we're not wasting time. Straight into the first whiskey, yeah.
Straight in. So
mainly because I've
starting...
been nosing it and I want to start drinking it. I'm selfish here.
Have you tried this one, Morsey, yet at the bar?
No, okay. We did about .1 through .4, luckily, when they were being released in Scotland.
That's right, yeah.
Not the latest.
And this is also fitting because last week, for those who are unaware, last week we had our week 1 virtual tasting in which we tasted last Friday's releases for Whisky Wanderers. This week we're tasting this Friday's releases ahead of schedule. And we ended on the .2. And now we're starting with the .5 for this distillery. So
I wonder if that was planned by someone.
You know what? I did plan it. That's right.
So we are starting with 162.5. And I want to just highlight to everyone that's tasting along with us tonight, there's no change in order. We are just going as planned.
Excellent. I first nosed this about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, you guys had a head start on me. I've just started with this. I was fortunate, Morsey, I don't know if you were in the room as well, but I actually went to the Rosé Masterclass at Dramfest in February.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, I didn't, but it looked really good.
Yeah, well, it was. And it was really great to hear their story and hear their story, their ethos, their philosophy, what they're trying to achieve, what they've been able to achieve. Starting up a half decent sized distillery on a very, very remote island on the remote west coast there. It's done wonders for the community, for the building they're in, for tourism off that side. It's just been such a feel good story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving to see them released, especially by us, because when I was at Rase, the last time I managed to get out there, they weren't quite releasing their own stuff yet. They had a few little fun IBs that were private casks that the owners sort of had kicking around for something unique to try when you were doing their cellar door equivalent. But everything was, they let you try cask samples, but it was sort of, around the 18 months to 2 years at the time. And so it's cool to see it finally coming out.
Beautiful nose.
Mm.
Yeah, very like a cherry cola sort of thing.
Touch of something savoury too, though, in there. Just a little umami.
Yeah.
I love that cherry cola note because that is that kind of nuttiness that you find off the cask type. So we mentioned Chinkapin last week with the .2, which was, just very much always provides this nutty, and what I've previously seen is a lot of Ferrero Rocher, that hazelnut cream. But this time it's more that cola nut.
Yeah.
I don't know. Forgive me, I don't know how much you went into Chinkapin last time, but straight off the bat, having had a nose and a taste now, if you gave this to me blind, I'm not sure I'd pick it was 5 years old. This is remarkably developed. If you told me it was 8 or 9 years old, I'd believe you. The fact that
I absolutely agree.
This good and so developed at only 5 years old is extraordinary.
Agree, 100%.
Yeah.
And that really is the story of the new distilleries that have all popped up in the last 15, 20 years, isn't it? They've all sort of, and I know, obviously Jim Swan had a fair bit to do with this, but they've all clocked on to the art of bringing mature whiskey to market sooner. And look, obviously everyone's starting up a distillery and they've got their 10-year-old in mind for 10 years down the track, but they are releasing whiskeys younger and younger that are hitting the mark and hitting the spot.
That is exactly the right flavour profile, no doubt.
Yeah, after having a taste and then a nose as well, like just when it's still fresh in the mouth, it's like gooey caramello koala bear sort of that cheap milk chocolate with the
and I think we
caramel.
touched on it on the last one of last week, but it's got that sort of that violin case, slightly cedary wood quality to it, which I quite like.
Yeah, that violin rosin kind of thing.
Yeah.
That waxy, oily, funky. Yeah, I entirely agree with that.
See, for me, it's when a guitar case has that sort of that like
the plush kind of, not velvety, but the plush baggy kind of.
Yeah, that in between, like a
the old
sort
Gibson
of
cases.
thing.
I know the ones you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, even the modern ones, like my Firebird case is the same, and it's almost like a cinnamon syrup kind of fragrance.
Yeah, patchouli oil.
Surely, yeah. So this cask is available this Friday, but if you guys want to jump ahead of it, QR code's there just for tonight.
Yep, there's only 5 bottles of this going out tonight, so jump on it.
Jump in quick. Oh, Devin, Carol, and Taylor, good evening to you both. Thanks for joining in.
Just going for a...
Yeah, go for it.
I'm
curious myself.
62.5. It's carrying well. It's very oily. I figure it can probably comfortably take a splash.
It's also got this like peach iced tea thing going on for it.
Add water. That's exactly right. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of photos of the
distillery. It is peach iced tea. That's extraordinary.
You guys mentioned the distillery and what it looks like before. So I've got a couple of pictures up here. Let me just put them up. What the distillery looks like. This one actually looks a bit like a model of the distillery. It is actually a photo of the distillery, but it looks like a little model done for a stop motion video. Let's have a look. Yeah, it is, right? Yeah. It's incredible, but it is, it's a photo of the distillery.
It's also amazing how that makes it look kind of dainty and small, but if anyone's looking at that building as you're looking at it now on the far left, that's sort of where stills sit inside that building, and that is a massive window when you're there in front of it.
Right there, there's the stills on the you'll see my little cursor there rotating around the left-hand windows underneath.
I'm sorry, but I call bullshit. There's no way that's
right. I don't know.
It's that.
Look at that.
It's that. I have another photo of the back of the distillery where it's. Sorry.
Yeah, iPhones have when you edit. I can't remember the name of it now. That's when you.
It's I mean it's got the faux bouquet thing in the background, but just the buildings and like the grass is so.
That is definitely born out in my memory though. It is very it was very nicely put together.
I've got a photo of the other side of the distillery, which actually looks like it's not. So let me pull that up.
Is Lady Penelope pulling out of it?
Sure. But this shows you kind of more what you're looking at and at the distillery. The opposite side of the distillery, the more functional side, I guess, you got your hot water tanks and stuff like that. You're also seeing the view out of those windows.
And that was really this distillery's claim to fame originally, wasn't it? But before they had spirit, we could all taste. The big talking point was the amazing view.
Yeah,
yeah,
that is stunning.
And it was one of the two distilleries that released a whiskey that was produced by someone else, but it was called I can't remember what it was called. It was basically in weight of Isle of Raasay or in weight of Isle of Harris, and they looked the same, but they were just like these kind of precursors to what they were going to release.
Yeah, I wish I'd looked into it because you're dead right, and I remember it being. It's like I think the Raasay one was named after somebody, and there was like the face on the bottle, but I just can't recall the story behind it now.
Well, I remember tasting the in weight of Raasay on the Isle of Skye in Portree after a very appalling drive from through the Caledonian Canal, where the rain was so heavy, the heaviest rain I've ever seen, where I could barely see like a meter or two in front of me. It was the only day I was driving out of the trip we had with my wife and I. And we basically crossed the bridge onto Skye, the rain stopped, and I just went, we're going to the fucking pub. We meant to go hiking. I said, we're going to the fucking pub. We did stop to see some coos along the way, but apart from that, we parked the car. And we went straight to the pub, and I ordered 2 pints of Guinness and 2 Raasay in waiting.
Very nice.
Yeah.
This really is like that. It's I mean, Lachlan, to your notes about that sort of hazelnut with the chinkapin oak, it really is just like a melted down Ferrero Rocher.
Yeah. Once it's had some time.
Sort of thing I'm getting from
Once it's had some time, it's really coming together in that way. Compared to the Dot 2, where the Dot 2 didn't have a huge amount of that hazelnut going on. It was...
No, I mean, that was also peated as well.
But still, I mean...
Same wood, a year younger.
But it's also still virgin oak. It should have taken a bit more out of it, but as I said last week, chinkapin is such a new timber to be used in the Scotch whiskey industry, and people who have been in the industry for a while still would have only seen a very small handful of these whiskies that have been matured in chinkapin. So,
well, as we said the last time we saw, this was not a fully matured, but a further matured, and it was Distillery number 1, your favorite.
Oh well.
But yeah, it's a timber that we're still working out.
I don't want to steal the limelight from this amazing whiskey.
It does give it maybe it's the oak element and that association to that, the chocolatey and nuttiness to it, but it does sort of remind me more of American, like USA single malts. It's got a sort of...
That'd be the oak. That's that oak profile of that funky sarsaparilla kind of thing that's coming off the timber.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's obviously different areas within Scotland too, but I think really what I'm saying is it's far cry from Speyside, but then maybe there'd be other distilleries, Scottish distilleries, that are sort of then starting to bridge that gap over to.
It's interesting you say that, Morsey, because having added water, this is just a fruit salad for me now.
Yeah, right.
Screaming fruit.
I'm doing that.
And if you served this to me blind and told me here's a Royal Brackler, I would believe you.
All right.
So much like a bourbon matured Royal Brackler, it's insane. And the water's just brought that fruit out.
Whoa, yep, no, I've just done it. Yeah. Peach iced tea, I'm getting that now. I'm back to I'm catching up.
Do you see the also with the American single malt note that you're talking about? Because American single malt's typically made with brewing barley, usually some dark roast barley going on. It's usually really funky dark malt character that's coming through. Whereas that's all coming from the timber.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not using brewer's barley. They're not using funky roasted barleys or whatever. They're purely just trying to extract what this timber does.
Oh, that's right.
Cool.
Someone.
I think that might be an internet pop out again.
No, one of us booted him clearly. No, I agree. I think it's that, and I guess the virgin oak, even though it's different oaks and things. But yeah, that sort of the woodiness of that can only properly come through in virgin oak maturation.
Yeah.
I must say that's a lot nicer than the first time I tried that a while ago, which again happened with the .2 last week. It's just I think they've really improved for me the second time.
They've also
sorry,
you continue.
No, I was just to say if you like your sort of chocolate, your hazelnut whiskies, then this is an absolute winner. And Andrew, as you said, it doesn't drink like a 5-year-old. Don't get put off by the age. This could easily be
It doesn't drink at 62% either. It drinks at, I'd say, 59.
No, it doesn't.
Personally, I'd say 58, 59.
I with my water, probably have brought it down to 51, 52. And I've got to say, it sings at that strength as well. Let's just call it a versatile whiskey.
Versatile as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute winner. And we've got a lot of them. I think we've got 72 bottles in the country, which is great for, brand new distillery code. So look out for it this Friday.
That's
but
great.
That's an absolute winner.
I prefer the nose with water, and I think I prefer the palate without water. And that's my little 50-50 split for me.
I could join you with that.
Yeah, okay.
Very good.
I've just jumped a little bit ahead here to the 105.50 next, and
let's do it.
Holy shit! It's vastly different. Same flavor profile, but so
that's funky.
Yeah, it's kind of funky, but it's also kind of like a bit of like coffee sweetness to it, like a little bit of tiramisu.
Oh yeah, I'm getting something. Maybe I need to. Well, it might all come out eventually, and we're getting different things first up, I suppose. But I'm getting some strange kind of like damp forestiness to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's that mossy rocks or mossy logs kind of thing going on. But I also, for me, it's dark chocolate and salted caramel as well.
It's mossy rocks and dark chocolate, but it's all inside a French wood polished oak cabinet.
French with polish.
That's it.
That's spot on. Yeah.
Nice bit of varnish.
It's such a cliche and a stereotype, but it's almost that memory of going to your grandparents and there's the old camphor chest or the old polished timber wardrobe or something, like the Narnia moment. I don't know, as kids we used to climb down my grandparents thinking that we'd walk out the other side into a snowfield. But
there were a few little notes of that last week too. There was we were sort of talking, because I remember we talked quite a bit about staining, different staining.
I was talking about tongue nut oil last week.
Yeah. Was that the
because the tongue nut oil note I always find on whiskies, but tongue nut oil is definitely for people who have done a lot of woodworking to understand what it actually is.
I wouldn't call
it's
this
definitely
tongue
not
nut oil.
Though
I don't know if this is considered a bad note. I feel like in some circles it might be. For me, I don't. But I'm almost getting like a little bit of a whiff of blue cheese.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a bit of Stilton going on.
Everyone, put a seal over your glass, give it a really aggressive swirl, and go straight into your glass and tell me what's the first thing you smell.
Yeah, Stilton.
It's got a definite cheesiness to it.
Yeah, like a real
pleasant
one.
A pleasant one.
And quite mild. It's
it's an English blue cheese. It's not a French blue cheese. It's not an Italian blue cheese. It's an English one. Those really kind of creamy but very light funk kind of ones. Yeah.
So Andrew, what's the logic behind your activity just there?
Oh, just obviously releasing the volatiles, getting everything to sort of accelerate and get to the top of the glass and then capture it there. So rather than it escaping, just simply then holding up your nose and breathing, you get that massive whack of all the volatiles in one hit, rather than the risk of it escape. I suppose it's just concentrating the experience.
Yeah, okay. I'm curious. Did you have like a strong feeling we were all going to have blue cheese? It kind of sounded like setting it up. I'm like, oh.
It was just extraordinary. I think Lachlan said it out loud just as I'd done that like a second before, and we were suddenly on the same page.
Yeah. It's definitely penicillin. No.
On the nose or palate? No.
But
yeah, I'm getting a bit of gauze now.
But yeah, there's also, I still am getting that dark chocolate with salted caramel filling,
It's quite chocolatey on the palate. It's actually this you might disagree with this, but I'm getting that element that sometimes, like, I'm sure the oak just is imparting in the way that it's been treated. And I think it's mainly with HTMCs, I get it through us, where it's like almost could be lightly peated if I'm totally blind in a lineup. Like not peated, but smoky. There's a touch of something like maybe smoke in it, but I'm sure it's just the wood.
For me, I think it's the wood, but it's coming through as honestly, it's coming through
because there's none on the nose.
Palate. It's like hazelnut. Yeah, it's like I feel this is more hazelnut than the 162.5 for me, but it's like a super dry.
It's like the unroasted, really kind of almost bitter and astringent.
I'm with Derbs on the salt. The salty caramel bit, like the salt bit is nicely playing for me in particular.
Yeah, and it's like that black salt,
But for me, it's black and white, and I mean that in more ways than one, because the first thing I got on this was Allen's choc mints, and I don't even remember the green tube packets that had the white and the brown chocolate, Allen's cool mints, and that cool mintiness, Morsey, is that bridge to the peat smokiness that you
great call, like almost mentholic, not phenolic. Yeah.
The other element that I find on this is, and this is a spirit character that I've found in 105s going back, is there's this starchy kind of thing to it, like pasta water almost, starchiness to the spirit character.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this one is, as opposed to our sort of, standard X amount of years in ex-bourbon and then an extra 3 years of maturation in another cask, this one's actually had 6 years in ex-bourbon and then 4 more years in a first or HTMC. So it's sort of gotten that extra year than we usually do. It happens every now and then. Obviously, we bottle when it's ready, but that's quite
nice.
fan of that one, actually.
And a very fun comment from David and Carolyn. Interesting choice of name, East of Fortune.
I have nothing to offer there regarding the names.
I think it's I reckon, you never give the panel much credence in it being fully logic, but I'm looking over to read the notes to see if I'm going to embarrass myself here, but I do kind of see where they're going with there might be a touch of that sandalwood, typically kind of that maybe things that are found in Japanese whiskies touch to it. I don't think I've ever been mistaken for one, but maybe that's what the angling was.
Yeah.
I think I'm definitely getting their old leather jacket sort of note. Like I definitely remember pulling out my dad's old biker jacket after how many years in the closet, and it's got that sort of this sort of nose on
There's
it.
some nice Eastern spice, maybe. Eastern spice is super broad and encompasses about 1,000 things, but maybe again, if we're giving them credit, that's where it's going.
See, I'm finding there's a lot of mineral coming out on it rather than the blue cheese is evolving into your sauna rocks or your
Did you say mineral?
Yeah.
You said mineral? Yeah. Again, as soon as the choc Alan's choc mints washed away, I was left with this mineralic character, and that's exactly right.
Even on the nose, it's like cut stone, soapstone and limestone. That blue cheese thing's washing away.
For folks in the Sydney basin here, you can go to plenty of places in the city where they've cut the sandstone face, and particularly on a misty or rainy day, you can go up to that exposed sandstone rock face and get that probably that same note you were just referring to there.
Yeah.
I've just noticed something. I don't know how it looks for everyone else at home, but right now, Morsey's the big picture on my screen.
The big one.
And I'm just noticing your background there. You're not in the menswear department at Myer at the moment, eh? And you've just
I'm not. I was earlier.
Is that what they knocking on the door?
No, I'm at my office, and I have too many suits and coats and ties and everything kicking around.
That's all right.
It's the roll up.
No, I'm I might actually go home after this. Who knows? Who knows what I'll do? Might go out. Exactly.
The night is young. I believe this cask is also available tonight, just for a few bottles of it. If anyone wants to jump on it early again. I think only 36 came to the country.
I think it's also.
And again, this is one.
There's a lot for the quality of the casks that this was in. It's a tad higher in ABV than its predecessor, and yet you'd never pick it.
Yeah. I still think it sits around that 58, 59 on tasting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Also, I'm wondering if there was a leak in the cask because there's only 180 bottles yielded in total.
I mean, if it was one bourbon hogshead into a HCMC hogshead, I mean, there's going to be less volume regardless. They're not going to have it full to the brim.
No, but like 180 is still. That's less.
It is unusual, Adam. It is unusual.
Yeah.
And also, if you're going into a brand new oak cask, the absorption level is so high.
Yeah, that's true.
So I reckon there's so much loss with that happening.
And would the HCMC sort of amplify that as well?
Yeah. So I was going to say I reckon that I think this makes a lot more sense. 180 bottles out.
Yeah, I mean, 180 is still quite a small amount than what I was expecting. Here's a question: if there is hypothetically any leaks in a barrel, does that affect the ABV?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kinda. Because what you're doing is you're creating a larger pocket of oxygen for more oxidization. Therefore, you have more evaporation as well. So it's a bit loosey-goosey, but you will lose ABV faster through evaporation.
There you go.
I mean,
I reckon you're
the
probably
interesting
right
thing from my point of view is when the society first started in Australia, 2002, 03, 04, we were getting all these 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old whiskies, and you hardly ever saw anything lower than 60%.
Mm-hmm.
You look back at the original Australian bottling lists, as we used to call them at the time, most of the whiskies were 57, 58, occasionally be 59, and to get something over 60 was very rare. And that was obviously very much a function of what the industry was doing at that time. If we were drinking, a 12-year-old in 2004, well, it was distilled back in the very early 90s. And at that time, everyone was just universally filling at 63.5%, for example. Yeah. And I think with the cost of wood these days, with the shortage of wood in some areas as well, all the distillers some time ago decided that they needed to fill it at higher filling strengths. And so even after 10 years, we're seeing a lot of stuff now that's coming out north of 60.
Well, that's a great point, actually. So I think you'll all maybe remember the Adelphi Glenrothes range that were all 66, 67, 68, 69% alcohol by volume between 6 and 10 years old, right? The choice to fill at higher strength. So typically a lot of companies started to fill at either 69 or 70% alcohol by volume rather than your industry standard, which is less of a standard nowadays, of 63.5, was, the lack of timber, or was to try and accelerate the extraction. Because you got to remember that it's a solvent, right, that's going in. Because ethanol is the solvent, and it's stripping out those flavors. So the higher the ABV, the more sherry character you can take out. So Edrington Group is a great example of this, where they wanted to take as much sherry flavor out as quickly as possible.
And then the other side of the coin, because then the alcohol molecules carry the flavor. So if you're nosing a 68%, it's sherry in the actual liquid and sherry on the nose coming off it. So
the distilleries don't really care for that, though, because they're going to be diluting it down regardless, right? That's not what they're aiming for. They're aiming for as much extraction in a shorter period of time. So, and then it's only independent bottlers who care about that high ABV flavor carrying.
You've then got the good folks at Glenfarclas wanting to, release a 105 20-year-old or 40-year-old as they've done. And for something to still be at 105 proof in 20, 30, 40 years, you've got to really fill it high and then look up.
Yeah, I've tasted those, and they're brutal.
Sorry, delicious, did you say? I didn't. My funny.
There was a memo, Lockie. We all got the memo, remember? Delicious.
They are not mutually exclusive, nor are they not mutually exclusive.
I get you.
There's too many double negatives. Okay. Is anyone sitting in an armchair by any chance? I'm not.
I'm about to, if you know what I mean. You were trying to segue. I got nothing.
Oh, no, that's right. Perfect armchair dram, 12.8.
Just final comment before we move on to the next one. That 105, that's got to be one of the nicest 105s I've had for some time in any guise, society, independent, official bottling. That was a great 105.
I highly agree. It's a distillery I don't reach
that
for.
Was.
Yeah, and for one that we've had with so much variety of age, like, we've got, I think the latest Creators series in the UK just put out a 35-year-old 105 in it. And we've seen there was a massive parcel of 1983 vintage that the societies had for a long time, gradually getting to between sort of 19 to 30 years old. And I reckon sort of 10 for that, I would have maybe called that older, just how much complexity there is. And as we said, how much it didn't drink hot. It's very good dram.
Mind you, I'm nosing the next one, and I suspect it's also a very good dram.
Yeah, perfect armchair.
You know what? I suspect they're all good drams.
It's almost like someone knows what they're doing when they're putting stuff in bottles, isn't it? Like, it's just amazing.
It's only taken them 200 years to work it out.
All right, 12.88. Let's do it.
Ooh, all right.
15-year-old.
So this has immediately a touch of the swimming pool for me. Just a little.
Yeah, okay. The hot chips and the chlorine
bit,
fingers.
But see, for me, it's the tongue nut oil and also the orange oil I use to season my fretboard on my guitars.
It's definitely very it's orangey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I alternate between
grapefruity.
Yeah. And a bit of tamarind as well.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
Oh, we were lucky to get a lot of deep, rich, and dried fruits bottlings in this lot of festival casks.
Well, there's a lot more to come as well.
That's a really interesting discussion point, and probably a bit too deep for tonight. But I mean, once upon a time, deep, rich, and dried fruits just meant sherry cask. It was the default. It was in a sherry cask. Hey, let's call it deep, rich, and dried fruits. It's amazing when you look at all the number of casks society has that fall into that flavor profile now. How few of them actually touch sherry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I almost said like, you know, we've gotten a lot of sherry casks in this one, and then I realized this is not. Yeah, this isn't.
Actually, to that point. So the last one was a HTMC, and most of the HTMCs we see are either peated or deep, rich, and dried fruits, rather than spicy and sweet.
We see a few spicy and sweets, I think, as well.
But this one here is a rare cast up that we never really used as a society. The STR.
Shaved Toast Recharge.
STR, the Shaved Toast Recharge, the Jim Swan special. You know, it's just something that the society never really played into. We see a few, but very few and far between.
We see every now and then. It's not a.
I guess it's relatively new. I mean, if you're looking at sort of whiskies that are now over 10, Dr. Swan probably would have only, you know, been first seeing the fruits of his labours 8 years after pioneering it. So it kind of makes sense to be a rarer one and we'd be seeing more of that coming through now as opposed to previously, I guess.
When did he go to the big distillery in the sky? Was that 7 or 8 years ago now or more?
I was about to try to have a stab, but I don't actually remember. That sounds about right.
That's a great.
It's a great euphemism.
Well, I was trying to think of a polite way to put it, but
anyway. Not to be mistaken with the great distillery on the sky, which is not where he went.
No. Can I just quickly interject? Bring us back down to earth. On the palate, straight away, this is like a choc fudge brownie in a mug sort of like thing. This is like really warming, rich, chocolatey, sort of cakey brownie note, and then on the nose, like after the sip, it sort of echoes that with like an oozing chocolate sauce. I'm gonna buy a bottle.
It's very Sorry, continue.
You go, Lockie. You go, mate.
For me, I was just echoing that chocolatey thing because it's the McDonald's hot chocolate sauce for their sundaes.
Yeah, like a sundae.
To bring it back down to, I guess, I was about to say lower socioeconomic terms, but
Adam's just everyone. We're just going to pause the live while Adam buys bottles for himself. That's what we're doing now.
So I should also mention there's only 3 bottles of this for sale tonight.
Keep it up there. There's only 3 up. No, there's only 2 now. There actually is only 2
That's
now.
Before you've purchased.
2 left, so someone's already
It's going fast.
Someone's jumped
Quick, Adam, check out.
Damn.
This for me is the first whiskey tonight where for me the nose and the palate aren't connected. There's a disconnect between the two.
So I 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, because I found before I had a sip, there was a disconnect, but then afterwards, like right afterwards, I found they were quite connected. And now after it's been a few minutes, there has been that disconnect again. I'll agree with you there. But right afterwards, I felt like there was
because I agree, Andrew. Like, I got a little bit of a disconnect earlier, just on one of the other ones but not hugely different, but just some different notes, that took it in a bit of a different direction. But this one, when I first sipped it, and when Ads was talking about chocolate on both, I was like, I reckon I usually buy on nose and the palate kind of follows. But this one, I prefer the palate. There's something on the nose which is definitely different to what I'm getting on the palate, and the palate for me is all that you were talking about, Adam. The chocolate and Lockie, the sauce, like more like a chocolate syrupy vibe on the palate. For me, yeah.
There's a great comment there from Will Pitchforth. Lucky, you able to bring that up? That's worth talking to.
Wilbur, welcome.
So he's asked the question that quite a few single casks from the official bottlings from this distillery have used sweeter wine casks. Do you think the spirit from this vintage is better with some sweeter wine fortified influence? That's a really interesting question to look at, because you've got to know a bit about this distillery and why they did what they did. When the distillery was acquired by, let's call him Billy Walker for the sake of the conversation, Billy Walker Group in 2004, if I remember correctly, they bought a distillery that had a lot of casks of very dull, dead spirit, and they had to reinvigorate and put a lot of life back into things. And so they re-racked a lot of spirit into wine casks. Exactly the same thing that Brookladdy did as well. You might remember there was that phase where Brookladdy just put out a new release almost weekly of spirit that had been re-racked into some fancy exotic wine cask just to make it sellable and marketable. And this distillery was doing exactly the same thing, number 12. And then until their new mate came through 10, 12 years later, that kind of became what the distillery was known for. They had some really old stuff that was great. But it's funny in that they almost made a virtue out of a necessity. The fact that they had to put all their stuff into these wine casks to pep them up, to give them life. And then we became accustomed to, so this is what Distillery 12 tastes like. And then you'd have some of the older stuff, or their new mate came through that they put into first fill bourbon, and you saw a different shade of it. So I don't know the answer to your question, Will, but I just think it's a great point you bring up, because it's an interesting distillery when you look at what they've done.
Definitely.
Yeah, and this distillery, since it's been kind of growing, it's now Brown-Forman, and even since then they've grown it further. They opened their malting floors again about I think 11 years ago.
Yeah, now? That's a funny one. They did a one-off in 2013, and it's not running full time. It's I think they
do it once a year now. They
Sorry?
They do it once a year to release a 9-year-old batch of their floor malted barley.
Yeah, so it's not a continuously running thing.
No. Yeah. But it is something that they're trying to expand on what the distillery does. But yeah, you're absolutely right in relating it to what Brookladdy was doing and what Billy Walker was doing with a lot of the distilleries he picked up was, just injecting life into some pretty dead spirit, with the exception of maybe one of the distilleries he picked up.
The most neglected one, probably.
Yeah. But also, he still did that regardless. He took a bunch of spirit and whacked it in some sherry and some sweet wine and said, okay, this is how we give it some life, and then restarted the distillery and made it a cult favorite. So
I went through the warehouse of this distillery in 2011, and all their casks, they painted the ends of all the casks, the heads, different colors, and each color depicted a particular type of cask type. So, you could, there was the X sherry, X wine, X French this, X exotic that, da-da-da-da-da. And you walked into the warehouse and it was like looking at a rainbow. There were just colors everywhere because they'd filled into so many different exotic, strange casks just to do what they could do.
I think one of these a whiskey from this distillery was the first time I tried a Montbazillac cask.
They had some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. And then the next Montbazillac I tried was Brookladdy, so it wasn't too far behind. So,
yeah, it was always.
Speaking of casks, do you guys want to quickly run through what an STR actually does to the cask? Why you'd need to perform the toast rechar?
The entire concept of the shaved toast rechar was originally designed by Jim Swan as a way to get young distilleries onto the market faster, and also to try and give them wine casks, specifically table wine casks, that were active and not turning, because you've got to think about, so say you open a bottle of wine and within 5 days it started to go bad, right? It's oxidizing, it's becoming acetic, it's just not what you want. But think about having a X wine cask shipped from, say, France or Italy or Spain, and that wine starts to oxidize that's in the timber, and you fill a whiskey with that. fill whiskey into that, and it starts to absorb that acidic, oxidizing wine, right? So how do we use those wine casks that are being shipped to Scotland and probably aren't being filled within 24 hours before they start to turn? So he decided to try shaving out the inside of the cask, toasting it, so caramelizing the wood sugars and also the wine, and then re-charring it. And that charring will open up the pores of the timber to create more surface area for extraction for the spirit. It'll also create a filtration system through carbon, having a carbon layer on the inside of the cask, and also just that extra little bit of toastiness and richness that the cask can provide to that spirit to basically emulate a much older whiskey than what is being released. And that was to help young distilleries, right? So a lot of the Jim Swan distilleries are Kilchoman.
Lockie's dropped. Cavallan.
Cavallan comes to mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Cavallan is one as well. But he had
Kingsbarn's another.
Kingsbarn's another. Technically Locklear as well, and Lindor's Abbey. But it was all about trying to get young distilleries onto the market faster, but utilizing these wine casks. Right?
100%. There's another side to it too, and that was just simply rejuvenating casks so that you could get another fill out of them when the rest of the industry thought, well, these casks are past it now. We've got to sell them on to Bunnings and they'll be sold as garden furniture. It allowed, a cask to be used one more time when previously would have been disposed with. So that obviously had an economic value as well.
Exactly.
And then also, the increasing narrative now is the demand for wood and the fact that the bourbon casks out of America now are getting harder and harder to come by. There's so many more distilleries all grasping to try and get the casks they can. And if you can just get one more fill out of a cask rather than having to join the queue to get a new one, that also had a lot going for it as well.
I want to just
thank you.
Talk to Graham Hasselhoff here. How do we go from 30 available to 3? There's only 3 available tonight. The rest will be available on Friday when all these whiskeys go live.
And when we say 3, there's actually none available tonight anymore. So all 3 have sold. These bottles are releasing on Friday, though. So this is just a teaser to show what's coming on Friday. We have a handful of bottles for each available tonight.
Exactly. I think the moral of the story there, folks, is tune into our live streams and you can get the early grab at things.
Exactly.
Yeah. These aren't actually on the website through the shop page tonight. You have to scan the QR codes and they won't be there tomorrow. They'll be
there you
turned
go.
off.
There's a QR code as well for this one. I will also
sold out, but
I will also talk to this particular cask because this one's a very funny one because it was a first fill American oak barrique that had been STR treated, but the heads themselves were new toasted oak heads. Right, so this is not strictly an STR barrique. It's something entirely different. And I think it's done a great job.
Quite a fan of that one, and I'll be buying one on Friday. Damn. Sorry, numbers first.
Move on to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, that one was a must, but this one is a must.
He's good, isn't he? He's getting better.
4 out of 4. This is a really interesting one, though. And I do remember last month I sort of did a little teaser with yourself, Andrew, and I think it was you, Alex. I can't remember if it was... Anyway, it was whoever was on the live stream in May, and I said, has anyone had an 18 Boiling Coastal? And the answer was no. And here we are. 18.69 is an Oiling Coastal.
Yeah. This one, I remember talking to you about this, Adam, because this is a distillery that I particularly love, as you well know. Because it's just that classic big blending malt, big malty, spicy, dry. I've never seen an oily and coastal one.
And yet it is right by the ocean.
No,
Yeah.
There you go.
Doesn't mean the whiskey's mature there, though.
Very true.
That's interesting because there have been actually. It's sort of one of those ones that 18 reasonably early, but relatively low cask count, and it's had that bit of a revival of late, in particular, last sort of couple of years, maybe 3 years. And the UK's got a fair few oily and coastal versions of it because I've seen them come through, but I can't honestly remember if this is the first one we've got in oily and coastal or one of the only ones at least. So it's coming through more. And I don't remember particularly before this revival there being oily and coastal 18s.
It's really funny because, first of all, this is it's got some extra time in sherry. So it's had 4 years in a refilled toasted French oak barrique, Oloroso as well.
I'm getting a delicious musk stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting the the Black Rock beaches. Like the
that
Pebble
musk is
beaches.
sort of peaching through. The dominant is definitely, it's quite it's got some salinity. That this to me has that rockiness that when you were talking about it earlier, Lockie and Derbs, it was that thing that you get in like white wine that's got that mineralic quality to it, kind of like oyster shell and shale and that kind of quality to wine. I'm getting that in this now.
It's funny you said white wine because there's a Chablis note to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that limestoney, shaly
thing. The limestone, yes. Yeah. In fact, I think what was something like white wine and onion dip or something? Was that an 18
It was,
coastal? Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were making a reference to my parents' dinner parties.
I think that was probably, the panel were, Andrew, they were having a go at them.
Right, okay.
Sorry, onion tarts, wasn't it? Was sort of onion jam.
White wine and it was something white wine and onion.
Everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's there. It's almost there. But yes, that was oil and coastal 18 and had that same white wine quality to it.
You know how you get those whiskies occasionally, you pour a dram and you could just nose and nose and nose and nose and not get bored. And this is one of those. I just keep going back. It's just intriguing.
See, this is a whiskey alongside actually the first two that we had on this tasting and a couple of the ones from last week, where the first time I tasted it straight out the bottle, it was good. It just needed some time to open up. These having been repackaged and then I poured them a bit early, this is so different to what I originally tasted in a much better way. It's excellent.
I can see that, I can, because it's giving more as time goes on, sort of thing. Like, and to Andrew's point about just continuing to nose it, like it seems to just be revealing a bit more as time goes on. So I can definitely see that it'd be closed to start with and then open up. I was going to say before though, I wouldn't nose it forever because I had tried it when AD said that, and the palate is also very good.
It's a quirky palate though, isn't it?
It is a bit.
Andrew, I saw your reaction there.
Yeah.
Sorry, don't play poker with me. But, yeah.
Yes.
That was a right turn at Albuquerque.
I completely I understand this whiskey considerably more than when I first tasted this a couple of weeks ago.
I think for me, the first time I tasted it, I honestly just couldn't get the oily and coastal note.
And I remember saying to you,
and even now, I still think it's quite subtle. Like I'm getting a little bit of black olives on the palate. But for me, I just couldn't get it on the nose. I mean, you guys obviously get.
I get the association too. Like
but...
on the palate, I'm just like, there's a heap of, I don't know. It's almost like like beach side now. It's gone to like lemon drops, bag of lemon drops and things on the palate.
I was going to say that's citrusy element for me is very coastal. It's almost like some of the native Australian coastal botanicals that are quite citrusy, but also like wax flower. That gelatin wax flower. Sorry. Very waxy,
and I guess that speaks to also the fact that not every flavor profiles do have different sides to them. Not every oily and coastal is going to be a 93. That typical sort of Campbelltown malt. Even though we see a lot of those, this is still an oily and coastal. It's just very different. Like the 26s we see in oily and coastal, or the 10s every now and then. They all taste very different, but they at some point they fall into a portion of that.
For me, as far as I'm concerned, for the oily and coastal elements of this, it is very like gelatin wax flour, salty, maybe samphire, and then it's grapeseed oil and maybe a little bit of very light olive oil going on as far as the oily note, rather than your classic oil slick, salt, water drenched concrete.
Yeah, it's not the Singer motor oil of the those beautiful, elegant ones that have that sewing machine oil kind of vibe to them. But this is oil for sure.
It's definitely not one of those two-stroke whiskies. It's
I'm acutely aware that I'm in the company of 3 Victorians here. Well, actually, one Victorian, one Tasmanian, and one displaced New South Welshman. Anyway.
That's true.
Having a go at Victoria, or listen to him.
But in any event, the 3 of you are in Melbourne. For anyone who knows Sydney and New South Wales, and Lockie, it's a bit further north from where you grew up. But to the oily and coastal note, if you know Lake Macquarie, about 2.5, 3 hours drive north of Sydney, and you've got Swansea Heads and Swansea up there, and there's a place called Caves Beach. And Caves Beach, as the name suggests, has a lot of caves and some rock pools. And I'm nosing and tasting this, and if I can picture myself being at Caves Beach, around one of the rock pools, seaweed in the sun, giving off a really fragrant note, and suddenly I do get where that oily and coastal description can come from. But you've got to have been at one of those beaches where you get that real potpourri of such a concoction of flavors and aromas, all sort of being blown together to get it. It's obscure. I take your point, Adam. I think it's arguably a stretch, but it's there if you've had that in your memory bank somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, you've also raised a really good point, because at the end of the day, these are casks from the Whisky Wanderers festivals, and as a lot of you would have noticed, a lot of the promo photography around this from the UK was on the beach and just taking whiskey bottles, down into a park and near the ocean, and it's about going down that road less traveled. The Path Less Trodden is literally the name of this specific tasting. Yeah, it is this one pack. And it's really where we're shining a light on some of these lesser seen distillery codes, but it's also that metaphorical sort of wandering into new flavors, but also just drinking whiskey in different places. It encourages you to take whiskey with you and experience it in different places, like Caves Beach.
Well, I think actually, what's also interesting is we've had 4 whiskeys so far. All 4 have been spectacular. You could pour me a dram of any of these, I'd be very grateful to you. This is the one that if you told me I had to stay on it for the rest of the night, I'd want to stay on it. Mm-hmm. This is the endurance dram.
Me too.
It's also the lowest ABV so far.
There you go. And at 58.
Yeah, it's I think it's just that thing about evolving and changing. Like for me, it's always the ones that are that little bit slower to develop, but you can see where they're going, that you go, right, I can commit to this. I know it's going to change. I'm going to get my value out of this just sitting on it. Not that the others didn't have that, but this is just, I'll revisit that in a few hours. That'll be different again, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Some was like
I think this is something that I would sit down to a whole bottle of. Probably not over one evening. But
Enjoy
You never know.
responsibly.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
I'd love to see it evolve as it has, because, like I said, the first time I tried it, and Adam yourself, that time we were both a bit unsure of it.
Yeah, I was just like, I just couldn't get the Orlean coastal note. I just didn't understand the allocation. But I see it a bit more this time. But as we
it's
discussed,
a different oil. It's a
I think in
different
my head,
coastal.
it's like,
Yeah.
exactly,
And
exactly
to
right.
be fair,
it's like your typical No 3.
I've sat on the tasting panel in Edinburgh. There are times when it's a 50-50 call.
Yeah.
Could go one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about that as well, Derbs, where some whiskies sometimes will just fit into a whole array of flavor profiles. So you just got to pick and hope for the best sometimes, Before we move on to the last dram of the night, I do want to say I do know Cave's Beach, and I do know that area of New South Wales. My great grandparents lived in the Entrance.
Oh wow! Okay.
So we're up there all the time.
Yeah. Nice one.
A long time ago. But I do know. As soon as you said that, it was a very nostalgic return.
Okay. And okay, so do you have that childhood memory of the aromas of that place? Could you link it into the flavor profile?
I could, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
cool.
very indicative, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, really.
You've awakened something in him, Andrew.
Well, I talk about the aromas around my great grandparents' place all the time for whiskey, specifically Fleurieu Distillery.
Oh yeah,
Fleurieu Distillery.
That's a coastal distillery if ever there was one.
Yeah, that distillery smells like my great grandparents' place. All right,
Mr. 4 for 4. Let's see you segue this one in. What do you got?
Come on, do it.
Look! I don't want to blow smoke around, but I think it is time for a bit of hanky.
Oh, it's close. It's good, isn't it?
No, it's not great.
Yeah, look, you put me on the spot.
Yeah.
You put me on the spot.
It's not
I was going to say, speaking of the
It's
entrance and names that wouldn't be allowed on bottles in America, Smoky Hanky Panky, gonna get banned. I wonder what this will. I reckon this will be called something else there. They are very odd about things. I don't reckon Hanky Panky passes.
They're just going to call this smoky.
Smoky government authorized,
or just activity.
Smoky tariffs.
There's no smoke in this bottle, therefore. This is an interesting one because we've seen heaps of those sort of 8 and 9-year-old 16s coming through in those recharred barrels the last year, and this is the first one that's further matured in a number 4 char.
Heated 16s. I like the peated 16s in particular. I know this is a step up probably on the peating, but like they are just like full meals, full savoury meals in every single bottle. Like there was Womble pie that I had. I think we didn't get that one, but then there was breakfast in a Highland Croft, which we got. And they're all just like full English breakfasts with like something bready, something eggy, something meaty. Like they're full on.
And a lot of them have been either HCMC matured or recharred matured or just first fill bourbon. This one here I find really funny because I've been calling it for quite a few people charred squared. The recharred hogshead into a first fill number 4 char hogshead, right? It's just I enjoy charred squared for this one.
Ooh.
I'll tell you, it's a weird distillery. This one.
I have a picture of it.
Would it be fair to say it's had its hits and misses?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
it is a beautiful distillery, though. So tiny joint.
Where's the big statue of the little grouse there?
Oh,
Get him in the shot.
If that's a recent photo, I don't know if it'll be there.
Well,
or not,
that's true. It'll probably be taken down now. That's it.
This,
Where's the crystal decanter?
Exactly.
The Lalique crystal decanter. Yeah.
Indeed.
I got a fight to realise that was 6 years ago that this changed hands, 2019.
Actually, good point. It was a while, yeah.
I'm not sure if they still do everything the same way because this distillery was proudly saying that they hand stirred their mash.
Yeah. It was a pretty small mash tun too. Like you could believe it. It had the little paddle and it could get all the way around. So I believe it, but yeah, now I'm not sure.
I tried to find a photo of their mash tun, but that wasn't only like 200 pixels.
Yeah.
So couldn't find any. That was the best I could find. That was actually going to.
I might have one. I'd have to go to another computer.
I was going to say I'd have to troll through, but Andrew and I have almost certainly both taken a shot of that at some point in our lives.
I rocked up to this distillery in 2009, or was it 11? I can't remember. And I was wearing a Highland Park shirt. And at the time, both those distilleries were under the same ownership umbrella. And at that time, I'd actually done a number of tastings for Edrington as a brand ambassador for hire, basically. And I'd hosted a couple of Highland Park and Macallan nights where we'd had the famous grouse as the welcome dram. So I rocked up just as a punter. I was all set to pay my £6 to do the tour. And they asked about the Highland Park shirt I was wearing. And I said, I may have stretched the truth a little bit, embellished it, but I said I was a brand ambassador for this brand back in Australia. And they just said, well, walk on through. So wearing that shirt that day saved me £6.
That's lovely. I have a similar story. I arrived during their like White Hand of Sauron rebrand era and said it was really ugly, and they charged me £12. So flip side of that particular coin. But then they changed it again. So who's laughing now? Turret?
I mean, I've got a different story about them, but anyway, I love this question from Will Pitchforth. It was entirely off the rails, but tangentially related question to the distillery. Talking of food notes, what is the best meat?
Depends what your purpose is, Will.
I assume that sentence is meant to end with, what is the best meat to pair with this whiskey?
Yep, let's go with that. Let's interpret it that way, by choice. Chorizo.
Oh, okay. I was just going to go with the very simple either beef, lamb.
I was going to say,
I reckon we're going to go into.
I reckon a rare pork steak, high sear, that kind of really sweet, but
a number 4 char piece of pork to go with the cast type.
I reckon you guys are playing it safe. You need to adopt the Franz-Schürer contrast model, and I'm not playing into your heritage here, Adam, but I reckon Greek-style lamb with lemon and garlic, and this would just go down a treat.
I would agree with that, actually, yeah. Or even a very soft tomato-based goat curry.
Or flip it, penguin.
See,
just
any other...
Just oily, coastally, peaty, smoky vibes.
Aren't they chocolates? Chocolate biscuits?
See, I, in normal situations, I definitely would have gone with the lamb, Andrew, just as a default. But for this one, I'm just going to go roast beef with a bit of lemon, to be honest. Also, just further to that, I've gotten a revised question from Will. Through the back channels.
Back channel.
And the edited question was actually Smoky Hanky. So, what is the best meal you've had at a distillery?
Well, let's talk about why that's probably the question, because Glen Turret,
as they have
Malik have their Michelin restaurant. My memory of Glen Turret's restaurant when it was when Andrew and I were there was
Alex.
No, this is like pre-Lalik, was probably one of the worst distillery meals I've had. It was a toasty of some description, where I think the bread was probably made when the distillery was founded, but
That's
now I'm trying to think of which distilleries have actually nice. I think the food at Ardbeg was pretty nice from memory.
Ardbeg's got the best food on the island.
Yeah. It's the first one that comes to my mind. And now I'm trying to think of other nice, to get nice cheese plates and nibbly bits at lots. Like Lefroy always look after you.
I genuinely can't remember eating at any of the distilleries because we were in such of a hurry that we just kind of just did the whiskey and left.
The cafe at Kilhoman is genuinely good. Kilhoman serves up some great food.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a strange experience now, but if you ever actually get to set foot indoors of the new Macallan distillery, half their visitor experience now is a dining experience with fine dining.
Mm.
I'm not
Yeah, that
necessarily.
sounds about
endorsing it,
right for their whole
but that's what
business.
it's going for.
Oban, you don't. It's not really at the distillery, but the way that Oban's built, it sort of is, because pretty much on every corner opposite the actual distillery is like a nice fish and chip shop, because it's right there on the water, built right into the city.
Yeah.
Alex, can you look up like that way
This
just
way?
quickly again? Like
This way.
the other way. The other way. It almost looks like you're wearing a flat.
This is my hair, you mean?
Yeah, it's the angle. I was like, holy shit.
I'm not happy with you.
Sorry, I just.
Next time you see me, I'll have a
Someone
shaved
self-made.
head because of that. And I'll be wearing a black cap to keep my head warm.
See that. I'd love to see that.
I would be a horrific bald man. And I hope it never happens because.
Mate, don't take that, Alex. I would kill to have your hair.
Oh, mate, yeah, no. Well, please don't, because I want it. I'll keep mine.
Andrew has to settle for
I would
a
also be a horrific bald man, mostly because my skull is shaped like that.
Yeah, I reckon I've
got
bits.
I've got a fucking spine up the top of it.
I've got a spine in my head.
You've
too,
once again got
I
the
think.
best hair of the
Just
evening,
I hope
so.
I do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what,
Anyway, we've devolved.
It's not a distillery, but to just close out Will's question there, and I'm sure we've all probably at least been up there, if not set foot in the joint, but if you go up the Royal Mile in Edinburgh and you get to the Whisky Experience, which is that weird little building on the left there, and there's a restaurant as part of that, which has a name I've forgotten as I start this conversation. But it is a great little restaurant, and for a place that kind of, have you ever done that tour where you hop on the little ride and it's
a little barrel that takes you around, yeah,
and they make you think it's as close as you'll get to visiting a distillery in the Royal Mile anyway. But if you go to the restaurant there, which maybe it's called Amber, anyway, great food.
Yes, I think that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I've only ever done that once, and I know people have gone back. But like when I was sort of much younger, did the experience, and then wandered around and tried the whiskey bars in Royal Mile, and now I just go to Queen Street. But I do remember it was quite good there. Yeah, that's actually good. That's a good segue. Just while we're on food, though, until it's still actually quite nice, but it's been linked to the style of the venues in more similar across the UK. But the restaurant at Queen Street used to be kind of a bit independent, and basically won like best restaurant in Scotland 3 years in a row or something. Like it was wild.
I can vouch for that. My wife and I ate there in 2008 when it was chasing a Michelin star.
Yeah,
and it certainly was an extraordinary experience. And the vibe was, although they didn't get there's actually some press for this. If you Google and go looking for it, you'll find a couple of reviewers that more or less said that Queen Street was the best dining in Edinburgh. This is back in about 08, 09.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I remember it. I'm trying to think the year I went when it was like, I went a couple of years, but there was like an exceptional year, probably around like 2012 to 13 or something around then. Yeah, and it was like full fine dining attention, but just a hidden little gem.
Can I tell you a true story? And I'm not embellishing this whatsoever, but my wife and I went round all Europe and Scotland for 7 weeks last year. One of the best meals we had was at the Vaults. And we did some pretty fine dining across Switzerland, Italy, France. The meal we had at the Vaults was next level. My brother and his wife did a similar thing. They were 7 weeks around Europe, and I arranged to have him to visit the Vaults. They said the meal they had there was the best. And a very good mate I've known for 30 years, he and his missus did a big trip, and they also popped into the Vaults, and they said the meal they had there was the best of their 8-week trip. So what's they're putting out of the kitchen at the Vaults at the moment is just extraordinary.
Incredible to hear.
Wow. I've just gone back to all of those. I mean, they're all pretty much empty glasses with like a little bit of liquid in them, and they're all wildly different, but incredible. And I think Perfect Armchair Dram is like sticky, gooey, cheap honey, like the type you. Does anyone remember those? Honey sticks? When you like suck the honey out of them. I'm gonna stop doing this, but yeah, it kind of tastes like that. It smells like how that tasted, and the Easter 40 is almost like a Rothman cigarettes on a leather couch.
I'm going to take that honey note for the perfect armchair dram. It's very much a Australian honey, like a red gum honey or an ironbark honey, like that really earthy, funky kind of thing.
I'm going to take it and twist it a tad. It's when you get like a mild gingerbread with honey in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gingerbread, and then icing sugar covered.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. I can never remember what they're called. But yeah, that gin, that kind of
gin. Like a pfeffernuss.
Pfeffernuss, yeah.
Pfeffernuss.
Yeah. For the perfect armchair dram.
Yeah.
The 162.5 is just cherry cola, like straight up. It's syrup, like post-mix syrup.
Just to be quirky, I've added a splash of water to my 16.97, the last dram there, and it's actually heightened the smoke. Yeah. Just brings out a little bit more peat than what was there previously.
Man, I wasn't going to.
I was quite
12.
Fan of that.
Sorry, Adam. That 12. I think I'm now where you were before with it. You know, like I like it now. It's doing absolutely everything I want. Like the spice levels bang on. It's gone like really syrupy. Yeah, I think I have to get this too now. 12.
Oh,
see you on Friday.
The midday.
That's good.
This was one of the issues we used to have back in the original days of the Society's local tasting panel. We'd taste all the casks, and then the tasting panel would reserve half the stuff before it even came into the country.
The last temptations.
Oh, that's a good call, Alex. I've just gone back to 12, and man, that's a different dram now.
Yeah.
Yeah, both on Friday.
We'll be jostling.
I'll give members till 12:03 before I try to check out.
Jostling for the fair maiden of 12.88. Yeah, so all these bottlings are available on Friday at midday Australian Eastern Standard Time as part of this week's releases. For Whisky Wanderers Festivals, the Path Less Trodden this week. Unless you want to rewind this virtual tasting tonight, scan some of those QR codes. If there are any bottles left, you can grab them tonight. They won't be there tomorrow. And then they'll be back on Friday.
And don't forget...
One more to go.
Yeah, one more to go.
One more week. Yeah, next week. So all the packs are sold out there. That's the last one. We've got Perth tasting tomorrow night. Lockie's going down for that one. And then if anyone's at the Perth Whisky Show on Saturday, drop past to see Lockie at the J.G. Thompson and Single Cask Nation stand. So we launch that around the country. And next week we've got Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney the week after, along with Launceston and Hobart. And then Brisbane and Canberra to follow the first week of July. It's a big month for the Society.
I think just to cap or to continue on, it's not capping off until next week, but the Whisky Wanderers idea, I think last week we talked about how it's good because we've come this full journey of it's now all about flavour. It's about exploration. People aren't necessarily worried about where it's from, what the branding is, whatever. It's all about flavour and different flavour within that category. And I reckon we had another really good lineup in itself, but also everything was quite different from last week. So, for those who got all three packs, I think you're in for a treat on the whole of it, but also within each pack, there's quite a variety from dram number 1 to dram number 5.
And like I mentioned at the sign out of last week, and I'm going to echo that again, is I really appreciate the thematic feeling of each one. So last week, it was different casts, different flavors, something really exciting. This is distilleries that you see very few of, or more infrequently. So it is, the Path Less Trodden. We see an oily and coastal 18. We see chinkapin. We see STR casks. We see double charred peated 16s. These are all things that I really think we should celebrate. Adam putting these together for us in a really great thematic way.
That's a really good call, and I think with the exception of the third one in our lineup tonight, these are all distilleries that you don't see that often.
No.
So yeah,
but the third one had the STR cask, so it was it was wild and wonderful.
Absolutely.
I just want to say something that's a little bit off topic and a twist, but I can't join you for next week's one. So this will be my last live stream in June, and I don't know if I'm lined up for July yet. Adam, you'll tell me in due course. But I do want to just shout out and acknowledge the wonderful Susie Torres, who's finishing up with us at the end of this month. Just shy of 20 years. There's a bit of chatter on the Society's Facebook page today where you can see some very heartfelt comments from a few members. What a loss, but what a wonderful woman, and thank you, Susie, so much. If you haven't read the accolades that have been written about her in this month's outturn, check them out. What a wonderful person. Susie, all the best, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Andrew, and just to continue on that post by Liam Smee in the Facebook group, guys, jump on it and add your Susie stories. At some point in your society journey, you would have had an experience with Susie, and it's most likely going to be a really positive one because she just is
That's the beautiful
incredible.
thing. Like,
so jump in,
You'll have one.
put your comments in.
You will have one.
Share the love.
If you've been a society member in Australia, you will have a Susie story.
Yes, indeed.
She quite literally is the best way.
Exactly. And I've only known
Andrew.
Susie really in a satellite capacity through my time in the whiskey industry and working for society venues. But one of the reasons I really wanted to work with the society was Susie. And it's such a shame. And I've told her this as well when she told me that she was finishing up with us. And I told her one of the reasons I wanted to do this job was to work with her. So
that's funny. Like, when I was talking to her, she said that's why she's leaving. So
yeah.
That's ironic.
Well,
said that one.
Adam, Alex,
Lachlan,
you could take
Andrew.
her her as inspiration.
No, well said, everyone. Well said.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Andrew. You will be missed next week as we close up. But anyone who does want to see Andrew in his full Whisky Wanderers prime, come on to the Sydney Festival on the 28th. I think there's quite literally 2 tickets left.
You say that, Adam, but I think I'm right in
footage
saying that, with the exception of Morsey, all three of us will be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all coming up for the Sydney one. Which is also going to be Susie's last hurrah, pretty much. So,
but look,
if not for the great
Sydney folks, get on it, come along, have the chance to meet Adam and Lockie. You don't see them too often up in this northern state. So, it'll be a fantastic afternoon.
It will be. And any Perth members, please join me tomorrow night. Even if you want to, just show up and we'll make sure it's sorted out.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
tickets are still on sale for another few hours though, so jump on them, Perth members. You got 8 drams. To
eight of the Whisky Wanderers Festival.
So it's a mini festival,
mini
festival vibe. So go down, meet Lachlan, fellas. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining in. Thanks, Dave, for joining us the last minute. Enjoy watching it back. Enjoy the drams. We'll see you guys next week, and in a couple of weeks.